right, Fly on the Wall Productions bringing you the Aired Out podcast this morning, live on Facebook and YouTube, streamed everywhere you get your podcasts, and on the web at airedoutvt.com. I don't even know where to begin this morning. Before I even get into it, a quick heads up. Donna Poitras and Eddie Sanborn are going to be both with me tomorrow on the airwaves, talking about Bikers for Beth. I am so much looking forward to meeting Eddie. I think I may have met him in previous past lives. I think. I don't know. But Donna, of course, I think I've met her a few times. She's going to be in here tomorrow with Eddie Sanborn. Bikers for Beth. Thursday, of course, we have G. Friday, we've got Rex. That's going to be a packed show Friday. Don't miss that. But Wednesday is going to be an episode that is going to probably stick with you more than anything this week. Alice Goltz is going to be returning to Aired Out on Wednesday morning, and wait until you hear her story. I'm telling you, it is something, and I mean this, you will never forget. Birthdays today: Roseanne Neto, John Pelkey, Jen Snelling, Jill Mosier. We have Faith Odell, Angel Maru, or Moreau, maybe, and Art Fletcher. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you had a real nice Easter yesterday. Easter Bunny, very active everywhere, running around. You know, the Facebook question of the day this morning, and Stacey, I know you'll have something insightful to offer here on this. And this was this has been a discussion at my house, and it was just over the last 48 hours of what gender you think the Easter Bunny is. But it's hard to tell with bunnies, and we've got one at home, and we still don't know. The verdict's out on it. You know, Peter Cottontail, people start leaning toward male. Movies like Rise of the Guardians, you know, maybe male. But what do you say about this? What do you say to my little girl who still doesn't know if her bunny rabbit, Jelly Bean, is a male or female? What do you say? I mean, everybody knows only female bunnies lay eggs, so there's that. But what do you say about this? I would love to know. It is only 13 days before the big day, and I know Chuck is ready. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here. Are you there?
I'm here, buddy. Listen, 13 days until...
Why are you bothering me? I'm at work.
I thought you were at Gillette Stadium this morning.
Gillette Stadium? I'm at work. You know, none of us can all play on the podcast all day. We actually have jobs.
I thought you...
What do you want?
I thought you said you were down at Gillette Stadium this morning getting ready for AC/DC 13 days early.
13 days? Yeah, I got my tent pitched. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, how's that going down there? How's that going?
Great. I mean, I paid $650 for tickets, but I thought maybe I better get here first.
Yeah. Well, 13 days is pretty good. I'm guessing you got a pretty good parking spot right up front.
Oh, yeah. I got a parking spot right there. I got a tent going. I got a grill going. I'm ready for you. Where are you?
Well, I'm still in Barre, unfortunately. It's going to take me a little while. I've got to wait, 12 days until I can get down there.
12 days? I thought you were like... Jeez, I'm disappointed.
Are you okay, though? Are you feeling healthy? You're going to make this show now. This has been a bucket list your entire life. You're not going to get sick or anything at the last minute.
Oh, no. And I've got enough friends from the nursing house business to wheel me in with an IV if I need to.
Well, I was just going to say, if tragedy were to strike in the days leading up to this AC/DC show, would you still be able to make it?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's a serious question.
There'd have to be like God himself would have to come down and say, hey, yo, you ain't going.
Yeah, right.
And then he'd have to kind of, I don't know, really convince me.
Well, listen, you and I are going to be chatting more this week about this, but I'm so excited, and I would like to get you in here before that show in the next 13 days. All right?
Yeah, I would love to. I have this. I could try to come Thursday. I don't know though. I got a bunch of running around to do, but I actually have another doctor's appointment. Take a guess why.
Shocker. Listen, the studio's open for you. All right?
Yeah. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I'm just coming off.
Are you ready for this?
I'm extremely ready. I listened to an entire AC/DC concert yesterday in my kitchen, and it took me that long to wash the dishes, and it was just pure bliss. I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, you got any excuses I got to worry about?
None.
You're going to be going?
Not one.
You do understand I'm known for kind of like getting in trouble. So, like, if I see an opportunity to go backstage or anything, we're going.
I'll be there with you. My plantar fasciitis is not going to prevent me from going to AC/DC. I can guarantee you that.
I actually have a goal to get on stage and do a shout out to Angel in case she doesn't get to go.
Well, I'll be with you when you get arrested. Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Love you, pal. We're looking at a sunny start to the day today. Clouds and rain by the afternoon and lower 60s. Thanks for getting your day, your work week started with us. Right next to me is Nicolas Storellicastro, our city manager right here in the Granite City. Good morning, sir.
Morning, JD. How are you?
Glad to have you here. How are you doing, man? How's everything going?
Hey, it's good,
Happy
Just,
Monday.
Plugging along.
I know I've said this in the past, but I'm going to say it again. I love that you can just walk in here and you know what to expect now. You just grab a microphone, sit down, make yourself comfortable, and here we go. Where are we going this morning? We want to talk city budget.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I wanted to. I know that you've been hearing a lot from our community about Officer McGowan, who is and has been over the years, a long time, a very well-known officer here in the Granite City. What say you about all of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think the whole situation is tragic, it was a difficult situation from the beginning. Our priority, myself and the chief, was to make sure that we did what we thought was the right thing, and that we treated Officer McGowan fairly. Mm-hmm. And I think we accomplished both things, even though the situation was a separation from employment. Mm-hmm. So I think it's been difficult. I've been thinking a lot about this issue because I know Officer McGowan well. I've interacted with him quite a bit. He's very active in the community. Our kids play soccer and hockey together. I'm going to continue to see him in the community, and I've always liked him as a human, as a person, and as an officer. So this has obviously been weighing on my mind quite a bit. I think, JD, I thought about I was on the debate team in high school, and I used to be pretty feisty in my civics classes and stuff. And my history teacher, she gave all of us like a quote at the end of our senior year, and the quote she gave me was, it's something to the extent of, the test of a first-rate intelligence is to be able to hold two competing ideas in your head and still be able to function. I think it's a F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. Stuck with me all these years, obviously. And I keep coming back to that quote because there's a lot of things that can be true, and people have to, I think, show some ability to have those competing thoughts in their mind, right? The first one is that Brandon Carbo's a nuisance, right? The guy that was the use of force was applied against, right? Mm-hmm. It can be true that he's a nuisance. It can also be true that even a nuisance shouldn't be treated like that, right? And it can also be true that Officer McGowan is a good person. All these three things can be true at the same time, and I think that our personal test as a human is can we hold those concepts in our head at the same time, and that's why
objectively,
right? And so I think I have been able to. That's what I've been, struggling with, because it obviously was a very difficult situation. But it is all three things I think are true, which is Brandon Carbo is a nuisance who harasses residents, right? I don't think there's any dispute about that. This was the wrong way to address that situation on that day. It was inappropriate, and it was against city police department policy, and it was against police academy training. And James McGowan is, and will be a good person, right? Like, I think all those things are true, and we just had to do the right thing, and I think we did, even though it was a difficult situation.
I have received so much about this story. I know you have too. Probably a hell of a lot more than I have. How do we get and I'm not making an excuse for anyone, but a lot of what I have read from listeners who have texted me publicly on the page, but also privately, is that above and beyond being a police officer, Officer McGowan, like the rest of us, is a human being who's subjected to the same life that we all live, which is full of stress, it's full of anxiety, it's full of mental illness, it's full of everything. And I know you just mentioned the training, which a lot of people go back to, that you've got to be a well-trained police officer with always having the right mindset before you put your uniform on every day, to be a human above all things. But we're all guilty of something, man, and we've all snapped in one way or another and acted in a way that's not necessarily consistent with our character. That's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Me, you, everyone.
Yeah.
But when you do have that uniform on, you are held to a higher standard, which for some can be very difficult to maintain that standard when you're dealing with everything else going on in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the police officers, troopers, sheriffs, whatever you want to call them, folks in law enforcement, they have the legitimate use of force in our society. We've given them that.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that, there's training and there's high standards, and we do hold them to a higher standard. We train them to those standards, and we expect them to keep it. And the key word is legitimate use of force, right? And I think in this case, what the police chief saw when he reviewed the body cam footage, what I saw when I saw it, we certainly had our doubts about it, which is why we had it investigated independently, right? And so both investigations in this case were done outside of our own building. We didn't want our own personal biases one way or the other, both because of who the subject was and because of our connection to Officer McGowan, to be injected in any of this review, right? So the first investigation was done by the Vermont State Police. Second one was internal affairs investigation done by the Windsor Police Chief. And so in our minds, policies of the police department were not followed. This was an action that was not consistent with the training the individual received. And for many people, I agree with you, JD. I mean, there's a lot of professions where you can make a mistake and you can recover from it. Some professions, police officer, airline pilot, your first mistake might be your last one, right? And well, so that's a tough standard to live up to. There's mistakes I could make that could be my last one, So and you have to live with those consequences, and so. But yeah, I think what was important for us again was making sure that we let the facts take us to the proper conclusion, and that we do a fair process, which I think this was.
Yeah. Brandon is not the only I'm trying to think of the word, individual in our community who is consistently recurring as an issue. There's a few others that have been panhandling aggressively, not just right here in our city limits, but outside of our city limits too, pushing into Montpelier and South Barrie and so on. How do we and we've chatted about this before, you and I, that there's not a line 10 miles long of people tripping over themselves, anxious to become a police officer these days. And you've had a great community forum up at the auditorium not too long ago. I hope that there will be more to hear what the community has to say. But how do we get a grasp on some of these troublesome individuals that just won't go away?
That is the ongoing frustration that's up and down the organization, from myself to the chief to the officers and I know to residents. Like it's ongoing. Last year, we had the top 8 individuals with multiple contacts had 367 contacts with the Barrie City Police Department. That is, on average, more than once a day, we were interacting with one of these 8 individuals. Sometimes more, sometimes, but 367 contacts in 365 days is not good. I'm going to present to the city council tomorrow because we're actually making a pitch to buy some security cameras for public areas. And we have the same data. The top 8 individuals are on track again for 368 contacts, one more, if we project out for the full year, right? Not acceptable. I think that, it's not a problem that Barrie City created. It's not a problem that Barrie City alone can solve.
Sure.
We need all hands on deck. This is a executive, legislative, judicial branch challenge that we need to basically roll up our sleeves and all work on together. Because you're seeing it's not just Barrie City, right? Like St. Albans has had difficult conversations about this. Brattleboro, which we stole their ordinance, trying to do that. They had this difficult conversation. These are not, these are the communities, from my limited knowledge, right? Some of them are further left, some of them further right than us. It's across the spectrum. And so what we're trying to do now is we're trying to give our officers better tools to address this with purchasing cameras. So we're going to put cameras up City Hall, Public Safety Building, and then Merchants Row and some of the high traffic intersections to give our police department those tools to better enforce.
That's great. Are these cameras being worked into the budget?
They would be part of the budget, yeah. So on Tuesday night, it'll be before the council to authorize the purchase of them.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yes, tomorrow night. And so what we have funding in the budget to do the licensing software piece of it, and then the actual purchase of the cameras would be capital improvement funds. So it's funded. It can be executed as quickly as I think they could start installing in May if we approve.
That was a question that I had is how soon is go time on something like this?
Yeah, it'll be assuming we get approval tomorrow night, we could start seeing these cameras up later this spring.
All right. What do you think, if maybe this isn't a fair question, but and if it's not, that's fine. We can pull away from it. What do you think the general consensus might be of our city residents with regard to these cameras? Being pro?
I think so.
Or against?
I think so. I think the general consensus is pro. I think we've heard the frustration from some of the last people you'd expect to be frustrated. Some of our partners in the faith community have been eminently frustrated by some of the quality of life issues going on around their properties. They tend to be the best among us, and when they're getting frustrated, I think that's like the canary in the coal mine situation. So, cameras are not, I'd love to take credit for being innovative. cameras are everywhere. If you travel to, New York City, you're going to be on a camera wherever you go. If you go to Burlington, they have cameras. Middlebury, Stowe.
Sure.
This is not Berry City, leading the way here. We're actually, frankly, behind.
Yes.
And so I don't
behind even Montpelier.
And I think I don't think it's an ideological debate. I don't think it's a left and right debate. Burlington is not known as a bastion of conservatism. New York City is one of the most progressive places in the world. They have cameras, and so I think that I think it's a common sense next step for us to take. To give our officers the tools they want. One of the things we heard at that public safety forum from, there were some people who were against the ordinance we were floating. And some of the response was, just enforce what you got. I'm like, okay, this is a tool to help us enforce what we got. And so I think it's an important next step. I think we've all heard too much about, people being on the receiving end of the aggressiveness, merchants hearing from their customers, trying to get into the store who they can't get from their car to the store without being harassed.
So just recently, Metro A.
There was right, and it turned into an assault. And so, they can also be deterrents. So I think that it's the appropriate next step. And I hope that I hope it's approved so that we can take that next step with it.
Well, listen, there's a boatload of comments that are coming in about this, and frankly, we could talk about this for a couple of hours, I'm sure. As most communities, I think, could easily. But let's shift gears and dive into the budget. Now, I know Monday morning, JD, really? Seriously? You're going to talk about budget on a Monday morning? God. What's going on? What is the latest with the budget?
So the city council approved a budget to send to the voters on May 13th. And I think it's a very responsible budget. I think we had a terrific process with the city council. The budgets are difficult. We're still doing too much cutting. This year, the real challenging part was that we lost the $1 million we got from the state. So you might remember last year we got $1 million from the state because of the immediacy of the flood. This year that didn't come through. There's still a chance we get some money, but certainly not $1 million. So you're losing $1 million right off the top of that bat. You got to make that up. Healthcare increases went up 18%. You got to make that up. Our personnel costs. Most of our staff is unionized. Those contracts have 5% escalators. We got to pay for that. Now, people will say, well, that's your fault. You negotiate those contracts. Absolutely, we negotiate those contracts because if we don't have competitive increases, those people are going to find other jobs, right? So it's a mixed blessing, right? It's a dance, right? So yes, I negotiate those contracts with 5% increases, but if I don't, I think we got bigger problems. We still have to pay for it. We lost a bunch of our reserves because of the flooding, right? So we took all our fund balance and had to prepay the flood expenses. We get reimbursed, but that's still cash that's out the door. With all those headwinds, we still came in with a budget that is spending less than last year. $73,000 less than last year will be spent. Now, projected tax rate on just the expense budget is an increase of 5.87. Now, you might be asking, why are my taxes going up 5.87% if you're spending less than last year? We lost that $1 million, right? So we got to make that up. Another great thing the council did, this was at Mayor Lozon's suggestion, they increased our streets, sidewalks, capital improvement line item by $130,000. So that's going to bump the tax rate a little bit more, but that's money going straight into, I think, what we hear about from people the most, which is the conditions of the roads, which were really difficult this year. And that's not a knock on our public works guys. They couldn't stay ahead of it. It was a difficult winter. Patching in the winter is really challenging. And so anyway, not a knock on our guys. It's just it's basically a knock on the underlying infrastructure that we have. So I think that was a great suggestion. Mayor Lozon suggested increasing 130,000. The council unanimously approved that. So altogether, when you look at our expense budget, that's the thing that funds police, fire, public works, planning, the clerk's office. That went up 5.87% in terms of projected tax rate. When you include the items on the ballot like the streets, sidewalks, all the other organizations that request funding, your total comes to 7.15% increase. So difficult budget still. We're still, there won't be a bulky waste event next year. We had to cut that. We were able to restore seasonal cemetery staff. I think that's a real pain point for a lot of people. And that was when we got a little bit of money back, that was one of the first things we funded back in the budget. We funded year-round use of the Berrytown yard waste site. I think that's something residents like. It's a good service. We don't have a yard waste site, so we pay Berrytown. We split the cost of their site with them. That way our residents can use it as well. So it's a pretty lean budget still. Like I said, overall we're spending less than we did last year, which given all the headwinds we had is a minor miracle. But we hoping voters will see it to support the budget and come out on May 13th and vote and get their absentee ballots ahead of time if they choose to vote that way.
May 13th.
May 13th. May 13th.
Big day. Big day. A lot of decisions can be made that day.
Yes.
Getting a text here from a friend asking, tell us how the water treatment facility works into all of this and the new city garage.
So the water and sewer is separate from this budget. The water and sewer rates are funded. They're an enterprise fund, so they support direct customers, so it's not funded out of the city budget directly. So those rates are set in August. Okay. So those rates, we haven't set those yet. We don't know exactly where they'll land. But they are set separately because they're customer based, right? So I
think they're talking about the new digester.
So that is underway. That was bonded. Okay. So that is all already funded. Work on that, the engineering work on that is ongoing. Yeah. And we'll probably break ground maybe later this summer on that. Okay. So yeah, that's separate from this budget that voters will be approving on May 13th. Okay. But that was huge. That was the city residents came out in force. I think 75% voted in favor. So that was very, very grateful for the support there. And the Public Works garage is also funded out of separate funds. So a portion of the acquisition is coming from the Capital Improvement Fund. A portion is coming from a loan from the Water Fund. So that'll be the acquisition of the garage itself, the $3 million. And we'll have to do the rehab to turn it from a warehouse into a garage. Yep. That'll probably be on the ballot in November.
And all right. And for folks that may not be familiar with what you're talking about, this was the big news that you were in here last time talking about, that we have a new Public Works garage that's going exactly where?
Morrison Road in Berrytown. Yep. Yeah. So it's a fantastic the old bond, current O'Reilly's warehouse. Fantastic site. I mean, if people haven't seen our Public Works garage, I think they'd be shocked to see it. This is a building built in the late 80s. It's in excellent condition. It's going to be a great long-term house for our Public Works employees and department. Up high, way out of the floodplain.
Yeah. The current Public Works building, I don't even know if we could call it a building.
No, I think it's that building is very generous for that facility.
Huge gaping holes in the roof there.
Yeah. No, we spend thousands and thousands of dollars to heat it because it's got all these gaps. It's just unsafe. The machine, the equipment doesn't all enter into it. We have to store the snowplows outside. Yeah, damages them. I mean, it's just it's something that frankly should have been decades in the making to replace. But yes, this will be the move up to the hill is everything's going on schedule. But that's not in this, but you don't have to, it won't be on the ballot in May. It'll be paid out of capital improvement and a loan from the water fund. the loan from the water fund is eventually repaid from the city's general fund.
You have to compartmentalize like an animal. I'm guessing. I mean, everything that you have to just separate and each one has its own
uses and purposes.
Yeah.
But this is easy, JD. I came from New York City. I had a $30 billion budget, so this is
really.
This is okay.
$30 billion.
$30 billion in just the education department. So the rule in New York City, with my staff, I had a team of 25, 30 people just to do the education budget. The rule was, if it's under $1 million, don't bother me.
Wow.
Yeah, just, we have our checks and our balances and our controls, but under $1 million is a rounding error. We were rounding to the, tens of millions.
I just want to drop this comment on the air. And the reason why is because I know you've already addressed this, but I want you to do it again if you would, because not everyone heard the last episode that you were with me, and I want to make sure that this is put out there transparently because you're a very transparent guy. Comment here from Taylor saying, this was the building previously owned by Lozon, isn't it? How is that not a conflict of interest? We're talking about the Public Works building. And,
yes.
And that was well written in the Times-Argus, but can you relay what you said last time?
Yes. So we went above and beyond because of the current owner of the building to make sure that we were making a fair transaction for the city. The purchase price of the building is $3 million. We sent the city assessors who are independently licensed, right? So they are professionally licensed. If they don't give us a valid assessment, that is a professional liability for them.
Yeah.
They went to assess the building. Their assessment, their judgment was this building is worth $3.9 million. We took the Milton, Vermont is building a new public works garage from a brand new one. We took their per square foot cost to build their garage. We applied it to what it would cost us to build a garage of this size, and that came back to, I believe, $8 million. Yeah. East Montpelier is just purchased a building or is building or bonded for a building, I believe, which is about a third of what we're getting for $5 million, right? So you have all of these data points that are telling us $3 million is an absolute bargain for us, right? And so independently validated the price multiple times with things that can't be fabricated, right? Like it wasn't me setting a price on it. It was independent people telling us that the building is worth much more than.
And that was done how many times?
At least 3. I mean, we had 3 data points. Certainly the assessors went in. I believe Tom had his own assessment done, which also came back higher. Our assessment is the one I put the most value on, which was $3.9 million, right?
Yeah.
So that's telling me our assessors who walked through the building, kicked the tires on the building, did comparable research. They said normally you'd pay $3.9 million for a building like this.
Yeah.
So we're paying 3, which is an absolute bargain. In terms of the transaction itself, the mayor was not involved in any of the conversations between me and the council. He spoke to me, and I briefed the council, right? Okay. So it was all along. He wasn't in the negotiations. He wasn't in the deliberations. If you go back and look at the record and the video, you can see when we had some executive sessions for real estate, Tom wasn't involved, and so you can take a guess at what we might have been discussing at that meeting. So those, I managed the negotiations with the council, and then I was the liaison to Tom. Tom and the council never talked about this at all, and so we kept it very, very separate.
And that's the short answer.
Yes.
Which, I hope people are very clear on that public works building discussion. Back to the budget. Mm-hmm. What if it doesn't pass on the 13th?
Yeah, if it doesn't pass, so this is one of the potential negative consequences of moving our town meeting date to May, which is we have a very short turn to get something back on the ballot before July, right? So if we need an enacted budget before July, we would have to, at that very next meeting with, certainly at least one new council member, right? Because there's an open seat. We would have to turn around a new budget probably at that meeting or the next one, or have special meetings to get something back on the ballot. And then that next one would be our only hope. Now, I think that, the consequences would be negative in the sense that, typically what would, depending on what message we get, right? If it was too much, we'd have to go back to the drawing board and cut. I don't know what else there is to cut, right? As I said, we eliminated the bulky waste day. We already eliminated the tire drop-off day, which were two things that people tended to like. Most of our budget, the vast majority of our budget is fixed, right? And I know that that's frustrating to some people, but it's things like salaries and benefits for those employees, which are mandated and settled, right? Yeah. There's a lot of things that might as well be fixed, right? Because we have police cars that need fuel, right? We got to pay for gas. If you want to call City Hall, I got to have a phone line. I got to have internet and email, right? So when you really break it down, we've done the analysis, about 90% of our budget are things that we have little to no control over, right? Yeah. And so that includes the salaries, the wages. It includes things like internet, phone, gas, heating for the buildings, electricity, right? So we're really talking about a very small margin of room in our budget to do additional cuts, and that's what we'd probably end up in a situation of, unfortunately, having to do maybe workforce reductions, right? Because if we can't find the savings in that very itty bitty part of the pie, you have to get to the places where the costs are, which is the people, right? And nobody wants to do that. I think we're already, compared to some other communities, pretty understaffed. So that would be, certainly residents would see they would feel that reduction.
Any more discussions about housing? Any more discussions about the update on JJ Newberry building?
I've heard some fundraising updates from BADC. They're still a couple $100,000 away. Yeah. And I think they have, I believe, until June 1 to come up with the balance. So I don't know if something's going to come out of the woodwork to make up the difference. It may be a situation where they accept whatever they've raised. They're not getting anything for that building now, right? So if you show up with a pretty sizable check, they might accept that. Who knows? I'm not. I think the rate of the fundraising is not indicative of getting there, but I hope that they continue to work hard at it, and we have a couple months here, 6 weeks maybe, right, to make up the difference. At the end of the day, even with the council, seating the $400,000 and the money they've raised, you could still get a pretty decent offer on the table. I don't know if I just don't know if they're going to meet what they set out to do at this point. Seminary Street is progressing, so that'll be the building on the parking lot here. That's the furthest along at this point. We have a great opportunity coming with there's a community development block grant money that the state got, about $67 million worth of money. Of that, 80% has to be spent in Washington County. Mm-hmm. So we are in really good shape to get a chunk of money to fill in the gaps on some of these housing projects like Prospect Heights, for example. Yeah. So that's that application. The state's working on that application process. That probably won't happen until the summer. Yeah. But we're, like I said, 80% of 67 million is a nice chunk of change. And if they have to spend that in Washington County, we're in prime position to be recipients of it.
Let's congratulate Josh Jerome, the new director of BADC, who's coming back to the Granite City. This is really exciting.
Very excited. I had a chance to talk to Josh through the process early on, and I've interacted a little bit with him in his role in Montpelier. But I think this was a home run. I mean, I think BADC needed this win. I think he brings a ton of credibility to the position from day one.
Yeah, he does.
So
guy.
I'm very, very excited to get to work with him in this new role.
You were mentioning the disposal site, the spring hours here. You've got it on your page right now for Barre City and Barrytown, over on Upper Holden Road.
Yes.
Yep.
This is completing our first full year of paying for use of the site year round. So this is great. I've taken advantage of it myself. I know that this is, I think this is better than what the city used to do, which was to do like 1 or 2 days of the year when you'd have to get everything out on the lawn. And so here you can just haul it up yourself. It's open throughout the year. I encourage people to, the hours are, I believe Saturdays 8 to noon, Tuesdays 10 to 3.
Yep.
My only ask of Barre City residents is, be good neighbors. Don't, we don't want any situation where the town is discouraged from partnering with us again on this. This is a great opportunity for us to collaborate.
Keep your household trash out of this.
Keep your household trash out of it. Just the flyer has all the details about the cans and the cannots.
What about the hazardous material stuff? There used to be collections for paints and solvents and stuff like that.
So Central Vermont Solid Waste I know they're undergoing some change. I have something I think also posted on the website. They're making some changes to I think they're moving, JD, I think to Berlin, if I remember correctly. So check out, I think on our website, that was still posted as well. If it's not, we can re-up it. But they'll do some collection. They have a collection site. They do some events throughout the year. We'll update as we get those events. The other thing we have is May 10th is our Bulky Waste Day. So that was funded in last year's budget. We won't have one next year.
Okay.
But this is the last one under this current budget, May 10th at the auditorium.
Is that Green Up Day? It's close.
It's close. I know it's the same day the town is doing theirs as well.
Okay.
So that's the Barre City one is free.
Yeah.
You do have to be a city resident.
Yep.
And so bring your bills, your property tax bill, bring your water sewer bill, bring your if you're a tenant, bring your lease.
Yeah.
I believe this is exciting news. I believe Carol Dawes is going to be staffing the check-in site.
Okay.
She's going to have a voter registration role. So if you're registered to vote, and you have ID, she can check you off that way.
Yeah.
That's also a good reason to get registered to vote.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to bring anything to the Bulky Waste Day.
And a little bit of a water outage predicted today and maybe this Thursday from a water main break.
Yes, Monday and Thursday. It's not a break. They're doing some work. I'm looking across the street here, just behind these buildings.
Okay.
So they had to shut off the water for that. It's only Monday and only Tuesday, and it's I think it's 6 or 7 properties.
And it's early in the morning.
Yes. Yeah. So they're shouldn't impact you at your home if you're. It's going to impact some of these buildings right across the street from us here in the studio, but that's for some water repair work that's happening. And this exciting time of year. This is construction season. We have the other exciting news is our paving bid came in. We hired Pike to do our paving program this year. I know I don't know your listeners will like it, JD, but Prospect Street's on there.
Oh my God!
Prospect, Allen, and Berlin.
Well, I remember when it wasn't the last time here. I think it was the one before that where you were like, "Yes, I'm aware that Prospect Street needs to be paved very badly."
Yes.
Wow.
So that's on the plan this year. Prospect, Allen, Berlin Streets. That work will start.
Berlin Street.
Yeah. We're working. We're trying to. We've gotten really good pricing on our paving, and in fact, we got such good pricing that we're going to try to expand the streets this year because of how much we budgeted and what the bid came in at. So stay tuned because we're going to see what else we can afford to do. But we're getting really good pricing when we are doing long stretches of streets in the same area.
Yeah, in the same area.
The vendors can deploy much more efficiently. We're getting the cost savings, and so that means we can do some more paving. So,
Berlin would be incredible.
Yeah. So we'll take a big chunk out of that side of the city this year, and hopefully, like I said, we're trying to see how much more based on the pricing we got. maybe we can start to get into some of the neighborhood streets as well. We're trying to get all the main thoroughfares as best as we can because everyone drives on those.
Sure.
But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to expand it. And then Merchants Row parking lot will be done before July 1.
Okay.
That's a finish from last year's paving program that our vendor got hired to do flood work in New Hampshire. So we were understanding. We've been through that.
Yeah.
So they're going to come back and finish Merchants Row before July 1.
Ooh, that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
That's going to make a lot of businesses happy back there. Jeez.
Yeah. That's in rough shape back there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, good to see you. Always a pleasure.
May 13th.
May 13th, get out to vote. Get your absentee ballot or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the auditorium.
Don't pass it up.
Yes.
Take this opportunity to exercise your due diligence.
Yes.
We need the vote.
Budget information posted on the city's website. So line by line budget, you can go see where every dollar is spent.
All right. I love that you're so transparent like that. It's good stuff.
It's important. Hey, the truth shall set you free, right?
And what was that line again that you said at the beginning of the show?
So I think it's F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it's the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two competing ideas in your head and retain the ability to function.
That's fantastic.
It's a good one.
Thanks, man.
Hey, good to see you.
Big takeaway this morning. Appreciate you.
Take care.
All right.
Be well.